Okay. Start. January 2025 meeting of the Kisatchie Fly Fishers is coming to order. Welcome everybody to the new calendar year, and we'll begin with our invocation. Carlton.
Father, I thank you for this time together when we can gather and enjoy fellowship with those that enjoy the outdoors and sport that we enjoy. Father, we just thank you for the gift of your creation, beauty of your creation. We thank you for all your many blessings. We pray that you'll bless everything that we do tonight and forgive us our sins in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Where's Roger? He usually says play ball or something like that. We have some guests tonight, I understand. Any guests?
Sue and Bob Quisenberry. Sue and I go way, way back to Bucky. I guess 60 years ago when we was in kindergarten. You don't need that old. I ran into them about a month ago, several weeks ago, and found out that they was interested in fly fishing possibly. So hopefully they'll be members of our group here after the night. We all have you hate.
Yeah.
Back here, new people.
Yes.
I'm Leo Sayer. Here, I just moved back to New Orleans back in June, and kind of here with my stepdad here, and was just kind of interested in stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Around shopping, I'm just, looking to hang out,
Well, it's a good place.
I ran into that gentleman at my sister-in-law, and he talked so excited about it. I was like, well, I need to come check it out.
Yeah.
And then I got the date fixed up and come on Tuesday. So it was quiet.
I don't have to do anything like this.
Did you say
Leo Sayer.
Just like the singer.
Yeah.
You make me feel like that.
Makes me feel like that.
Okay, no dancing right now. So happy to have y'all, and welcome to the club meeting. And we'll talk about a few things that are going on right now. First of all, before we get there, let's talk about what's been going on. This past weekend.
It snowed.
This past week it snowed, and the snow stuck around. I was surprised it was still parts of my yard or area out there on Saturday morning, despite the warm up. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, because the kids I know did. Had a great time. But it came at a price. I don't know if y'all saw some photos. There was some fish kills on the coast, mostly speckled trout. It doesn't look like it's too serious, but it could impact our speckled trout fishing for at least another year or so, until they have time to reproduce. Fortunately, they're very fecund. That means they're very fertile. They reproduce. They're kind of like sockeye, and they grow fast and they recover quickly. Redfish, it doesn't seem like there was that much of a kill. Very, very minimal. I'll find out when the commission meets next Thursday exactly what the status was. At least we hope to hear from the biologist tell us. But that was about the only negative. That and some accidents and usual things that happen when there's ice and snow on the highways. But other than that, I think everybody had a fun time. I mean, people built snowmen in their yards. Oh, and Okay, I'm the only one. Okay, sure. This past Saturday in New Orleans, we had the New Orleans Club had a fly fishing expo. And I think there was what, like 100 people there?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. We have ours in even years and they have theirs in odd years. So we rotate. And they had like what, maybe 15 tires, 11 tires. It was supposed to have 15. I saw a number of them didn't show up, maybe because of the weather. Some of the Lake Charles folks didn't show up. But it was a good group of tires, a solid group. Including Bill right here. He was there and demonstrating his time prowess. And he's really good. We had some great presentations in there, including Rich Waldner. I don't know if y'all have heard of Rich Waldner. He's like a legend in Louisiana saltwater fly fishing. So he was there, and that was probably the biggest audience of the day. Probably about 40 people were listening to him at the time. So we hope to have ours next January, as usual, at Keys Park, probably the second last or last Saturday in the month. We'll make that determination in a few months as to which date we pick and make the reservation and so on. It's always a great event, as y'all know. This coming weekend, there's the Lumo Fly Fishing Fest. It's going to be in the community center in Murfreesboro, Arkansas, if anybody's interested. It's kind of a revival of the Lou, Missouri Fly Fishing Fest that Jeff Guerin used to put on. Now it's being put on by a group called the Arclitect-Soma. I got that right. Arclitect-Soma Fly Tires. And everything kicks off Friday afternoon and they go through Saturday. And I think they've got even something on Sunday, a little something going on Sunday, but not really much. But Saturday is the big day for that. And Friday night, they're going to have pizza and they're going to have a presentation by the Corps of Engineers, right? On the Lou, Missouri River and the status of, and I think they even have the biologist too. I'm not sure about that. We're trying to get the biologist for Arkansas Fish and Game for our meeting next month via Zoom in February. So she can tell us what's the latest status on the trout fishing in the river there, because we have that big trip coming up, our March Brown trip coming up. And I'll let Carlton talk about it in a second. So if anybody's interested in that festival this weekend, it starts Friday evening or Friday afternoon and goes through Saturday. And like I said, there's a little something on Sunday morning. I don't know if it's a breakfast or whatever. There's a special rate if you're going at the Queen of Diamonds Inn. And it's on their Facebook page. They tell you it's G85 or something like that. I can't remember. But if you call them and you make a reservation, you'll get a discount on there. So it's a great event. Some great tires. I think there's like 42 tires or 40 something like tires. And so you get to see a little bit of something. We have our Fly Fishing 101 coming up. No, the calendar's not up. We have a Fly Fishing 101 coming up February 22nd. Right now, we have the largest group of registrants we've ever had, and we're still a month away. We have 36. So with that many, we need volunteers. I figure we need about 8 to 10 volunteers, and so far I've gotten like 4. So if anybody's interested, I'll make another plea out for volunteers for that event. But that's great that we have so much interest in fly fishing. It's going to be held at Book of Follower Hatchery, as usual, and it's from 8:30 to 12:30. And it begins with the tour of the hatchery by the biologist out there. So it's always a fun time for the students who go out to it. And it's free, doesn't cost a dime. What else do we have coming up? And this is our website for those who don't know You can go there and you can find out what's going on with everything. There's the expo, there's the little moat. Fly Fishing 101 is the 22nd, and go one more over to March.
Times on the 10th for next month.
What are we tying next month?
Real Bendy, the Jim Johnson, we're gonna leave that.
Okay,
And that fly, in last year's mixed bag, that fly contributed 30 entries to the mixed bag. So it was the highest.
wow. Yeah, that's a great fly. I'm gonna tell you something else. It's great for carp too. And I found out this weekend at the New Orleans Fly Fishing Expo that there's a tournament that kicked off last year, first time. Matt Colvin organized it, called the Dirty Carp. And this year they're going to have it in April, a little bit cooler weather. And what's that?
Good for trout.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I've caught some nice big carp out of those canals out there on that Rio Bandito. So it's a good fly. In March we have the Red Stick Club in Baton Rouge has Red Stick Day. The annual. It's going to be their 30th Red Stick Day on March the 8th. That's always a great event, and it's at Waddill Refuge. So there's on premises fishing and kayak demos. And they always have some great folks give presentations. And then we have our March Brown trip from the 20th to the 23rd. And then there's a Sawbug Roundup in Mountain Home, Arkansas. Some of us have been up there before. That's a great event. Tim Flagler's going to be there. And Tim Flagler, and who else? Pat Dorsey. Pat Dorsey's going to be there. So two of the biggest names in fly fishing are going to be at that event. That's in Mountain Home, Arkansas. And that has the largest number of fly tires of any event in the country each year. They have 120 to 150 tires. So there's one event that you really, you want to see as much as you can, and everything else, whether it's vendors, tires, names, that Sawbug Roundup is really something you ought to go to. Okay, but let's get back to March Brown. What's the latest on that?
Okay, for Swaha House, we have 8 that signed up for that. And then I know that there's several others in here that are planning on going and making their own arrangements. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed and somewhat optimistic that the river conditions will be good for fishing this year. And maybe we'll learn a little bit more this weekend at the festival about what they anticipate. But for anybody that has not fished the Little Missouri River or has not fished for trout in a mountain setting, in a mountain stream, it's just a good opportunity to fish alongside other people who are more experienced and are willing to share knowledge. And if you can make that trip, it's just a great 4 hours from Alexandria, and just as good a fishery as there is, or good a chance there is to catch a lot of rainbow trout.
I fished all over the country, and I'm telling you, it's amazing. We're just blessed to be so close to such a great resource as the Little Missouri River. The 2 sections, the one above the lake is good through spring until about June. And then there's the tailwater section that Carlton was talking about that fishes the 6 miles of water there. And it's basically a mid to size trout stream. It's bigger than most of the streams out east, and even compares to many of the streams out west. Like I said, mid-sized streams. So you can get out there, you can wade. You can have several people wading in one section like that, and it's not crowded. And there's a lot of fish, and there's a lot of bugs. It's probably one of the best dry fly fisheries in the state, in Arkansas, and certainly in Arkansas, maybe in the country. They have good hatches of March brown mayflies in the spring along with caddis, elk hair caddis that come out in April and May. And sometimes they're early, sometimes they come out in the March. And so you can get midges, you can get mayflies, you can get caddis, you can even get stoneflies in that river. And so it's an amazing fishery like that. So we'll learn about it a little bit more next month. But again, if you want, there's the man right there. He knows all about it right there. He can tell you anything you need to know.
And we're doing the mystery fly tournament again for our second year.
Oh, yeah. And just add on, the club hosts a fish fry on Friday night up there. And then the mystery fly tournament, this would be the second year that we've done that. Everybody that participates, and it's free participation, will get one fly and nobody knows what it is. And everybody will have the same fly and you can fish with that fly and however many fish it's on the honor system. There's a number of fish you catch on that fly. You lose that fly, you're out. You can't buy as long as the flies last, a mulligan fly we call it. Just that'll give you two. What we charge $10 or something for the second fly. And but that's the only flies that you can use that you can count fish on. If you lose those, you can keep on fishing, but you just can't count the fish. That's toward the they give prizes for first, second, third, maybe even more.
Oh, we did fourth and fifth. We came up with fly boxes, flies for fourth.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, just a side note, Jim Gilroy lost both his flies in a single cast.
The third cast.
How is that? Well, he must have them in tandem, right?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay. Bad move in this part. I'm going to be able to go, but I'll have to come back Saturday. So I could probably still fish it. But there's other places to stay, even if you're not staying in Swaha, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Diamonds, campground, several motels. And there's even some VRBO cabins. Swaha has all kinds of, Swaha Lodge and Marina is just real centrally located there. And they have a lot of different size cabins, very reasonably priced.
Okay. Next, we want to talk about membership some?
Have you posted the link to it yet? No. Okay.
No. But why don't you talk about it anyway, what's going on?
We've been trying off and on for a couple of years, and the guy that does most of our computer work is just a procrastinator. And but we finally have a live registration and dues payment form that we'll put up. And so right now it takes credit cards only, but as soon as Catch gives me a little information, we can do for PayPal and Venmo. We'll have credit cards, PayPal and Venmo. Also the option for us, those folks that don't want to use credit cards online, there might be a few of those still out there. There's an option to go ahead and register through this, so we'll have your updated information, and you can check a box I want to mail my check in or something like that. But we finally have full online payment. I mean, you don't have to go out separate to Venmo. You click like pay now on the box, and just like any other e-commerce checkout site. It's not posted yet, but Catch, he just got the link a couple of days ago from me, and we'll post it out there, and that will be the way to renew and join the club. That way they'll have updated information on everybody. And this makes it much easier to pay your dues. The dues are $25 still. If you pay them online, PayPal and Venmo and Square that we use the credit card, they charge us about $1.50 per transaction. So it's $27 to pay online, but I mean, stamps, what is it, 60 cents now or something?
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. So that's, that'll be live on the website pretty soon. So if you haven't paid your 2025 dues yet, wait a couple of days and put the link up and send an email out. So, a couple of us have already used it to pay our dues and it works fine.
Thanks, Bill. Speaking of dues, we don't have a treasurer for this year. Our treasurer, Cindy, her working hours have changed. She works Monday nights, so she misses all of our meetings. So she had to step down. But Robert Hughes has agreed to be our new treasurer. And we'll try to get together with Robert and go over what we need to get done. And once we have that, then I can give you a treasurer's report. Or I should say, Robert can give you a treasurer's report and let y'all know what else is going on. We're also looking, and I didn't put this on the agenda, but we're going to have it for tomorrow night's board meeting, committee memberships. We have committees. They're separate from the board. We have a warm water committee, a cold water committee, a saltwater committee, a fly tying committee, different committee, events committee. And you don't have to be a member of the board to be on the committee. Anybody can join a committee, and the committees meet and they can determine, like what Carlton does. His little group, they get together, they decide what to do about the little Missouri trip, for example. And then all it takes is just the approval of the board. And we just say, yeah, sure, right. Because he does such a great job, right? So that's basically what the committees do. They help plan and execute activities. Anything else? Any fishing reports? Anybody went ice fishing this past week? Okay, well.
Mixed bags then. What, mixed bags or stains?
Yeah, mixed bag is off to a pretty good start. I think we have.
Do we have any?
Yeah, I
So-
of course, did not come prepared to do that, just like the other computer stuff, but, we have, let's see, how many entries already?
Cool, yeah.
26 entries already. And, so it's off to a pretty quick start. For those of you visiting our mixed bag, it's a tournament we do every year, contest tournament, whatever you want to call it. And it's the number of species that you can catch on the fly rod. And it's geographically located, it's or bounded. It's Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, coastal Florida over to about Apalachicola. So it doesn't matter if it's a black stripe top minnow that's this long, if it eats a fly, you can count it. So it doesn't matter if your bass is a 6-inch largemouth or, a 5-pounder, you can count it. And we give away prizes and awards at our Christmas party every year. The top 5, the last couple of years, we've given Orbis gift cards starting at like $150 on down. But then probably even better than that, I think we had 19 different drawing door prizes all the way up through a fly rod and a fly reel. Some really good stuff. Fly tying stuff if you're a fly tyer. So everyone who was at the Christmas party that participated in the mixed bag, everybody won something. And so it's pretty cool. And you only have to have one entry to be eligible for the drawings at the Christmas party. But the cool thing about it is the number of species you catch is the number of drawing tickets you get at the Christmas party. Now the top 5 people, they're not eligible. Like, the winner of the thing is going to have 30 to 35 or 6 species probably. That person's not going to get 35 tickets to draw with everybody else. But like, how many did you have this year? You had 6 or 7. So you had 6 tickets. And so you had 6 chances to win one of those prizes. So it's a pretty good deal. It's fun. You go online on our website and submit. All you got to do is take a picture of it with a fly still in its mouth or a fly rod in the back, something that shows you a fly fishing, and submit it. And you get we had a new member last year, Aaron Bourne out of Harrisonburg. I think he got 26 species or something on the fly rod, something like that. The most we've had is 36. Yeah, so I mean, 36 different species of fish on the fly rod. But anyway, it's fun. So if you haven't done it, I would highly recommend it. And like I say, it's already off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, in fact, if only you have 5 entries of 3 entries, that's 3 tickets in the drawing for the consolation. At the Christmas party, just about everybody everybody who did get a consolation got a prize.
Go back in and draw for the fly rod. But if you've got 6 or 8 or 10, have a pretty good chance of getting. This was a moonshine fly rod we gave away this time. It's about, what was it, $300 rod, $200 rod, something?
Yeah.
$290 something, yes.
And a nice rod, really nice rod. Okay, so that's going on, and that goes on through November 31st, November 30th. Any fishing reports? Now, I did notice though on the submissions received, if you go back to that, look at that Rio Bandito, that's up there. That's the pattern we're going to tie in February. And just about every fly on there that I see is something we tied.
Nine entries out of the 26.
Yeah, but every entry on there is something that we've tied at one of our fly tying sessions over the last 6-7 years. And
if you're interested, have any interest in fly at all, you've never tied flies before, we'll pair you with somebody and we have equipment. You don't need to, you just show up. Like one of y'all want to come and tie with us. It doesn't matter if you've never tied before. One of us will sit with you with the equipment or come by and check on you. And we'll put it all up on the screen here, close on the camera. So it's
and we record it to our YouTube channel. So if you missed the session where we did a particular fly, you can always go to our YouTube channel and see the fly tied. Bill then comes back and does a shorter version of that same pattern a few days later. So if you just need to say, oh, okay, I know I did it. I was there and I saw it, on the YouTube channel. I just need to remember what the few things that was done. You just go to Bill Morrison's YouTube channel and you can see the 6 or 7 minute version of it and get all the information you need in there. Okay. So no fishing reports then. Good. I'm going to ask Darin Lee to come up and speak. Darin's a biologist from Opelousas, Louisiana. He works with Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority. And he's been in fly fishing for 2000?
25 years, something like that.
Yeah, about. And I'm going to tell you what, he's had some great fly fishing adventures across the state. He talked to us last time about fishing Poverty Point. I haven't had a chance to go there, but I need to. My wife was talking about it. In fact, today she said, you need to go to Poverty Point because somebody she knows that went out there and her husband caught a 2.5 pound white crappie.
Nice.
So, and this was just last week. So, but anyway, Darin's was president of the Acadiana Fly Rodders Club. In case anybody's interested, they meet what, the 3rd Thursday of the month?
3rd Thursday, and correction, I'm filling in. I'm the
Interim
I'm
president.
the interim president. Our president's having a little health issues, but I'm the JD Vance to our presidents. It's Acadiana. But yeah, you're welcome if you're in the area in Acadiana, come see us.
Okay, Darin, take it away, man.
All right, thanks. Thanks for having me. Like I said, I've been in fly fishing maybe 25 years. Didn't grow up in Opelousas, grew up in Baton Rouge. Did a little fishing in the creeks around there, Comey River, Amy River, kind of those sandy streams coming out of Florida. Not really fly fishing. Again, the big fly fishing as a kid was brim season in Chapel Basin, popper dropper, lignon brim killer. Caught a lot of brim, couldn't really cast, but that's when we fly fished, and then we put everything away until next spring, right?
Darin, excuse me, just a second. Catch your mic.
Oh.
Oh. Yeah, could you do?
Do I need to start over or are we good? All right. So, and then, I got really into fly fishing. Again, I had an uncle from Canada, and he was looking to retire and needed a hobby. And then took up fly fishing and decided he wanted to catch a redfish on fly because he heard about it. So he came down South Louisiana and we tried and couldn't get him on a redfish. Didn't really know what to do at that point in time. And so I said, I'm going to buy me a fly rod. And by the time he comes back, we'll figure it out. And that was kind of got hooked. And red stick fly fishers and all those conclaves that y'all put on and others really helped with the learning curve. And so pretty much now fly fish. Moved to Opelousas a few years ago and started fishing the creeks in the Southwest. So again, didn't grow up here. And what I'm going to tell you is kind of my experience in learning about fly fishing the creeks in Southwest Louisiana. And so basically what I'm talking about is the calcasieu drainage. If you'll change the flies there or slides there. And mainly what I'm fishing for, not with the mixed bag challenge, anything and everything, but, really focusing on spotted bass in the creeks and flowing waters and long-eared sunfish. However, next slide. And you can catch pretty nice bass. You'll catch some largemouths as well. It tends to be in a little bit of slower water, and you'll get, some, I've caught some crappie, sac-a-lait we call them, and particularly in the fall and into the winter time. And again, I guess I noticed on that first slide, I'm wearing the same shirt. I have other shirts, but I will tell you that this is not strictly a summertime activity. And so, we can go into the fall and sometimes even into the winter. If you are in the mixed bag challenge, then I would be doing things like this. And I'll warn you, I'm a biologist. So data, I need data. But, I'd be looking for things like this, which is fish assemblages on military land in western Louisiana, right? So military land, that's Fort Johnson. And so there's surveys of all the different kinds of fishes that are in those streams coming out of Fort Johnson. And why would I be looking at that? Next slide. And we're talking about minnows or whatever. So what I'm talking about is fishing this Calcasieu Basin. It's the yellow part. And these are the scenic streams that are in that basin. And so, is the fish assemblage in this basin different than the fish assemblage that you see in the basin that Alexandria is in, et cetera, et cetera? And it's a good way to plug in for your mixed bag is to look at what's available in these drainages, and you can fish. And so for one example, the only basin in Louisiana that has red-breasted sunfish is this basin right here that connects to the Sabine River. That's because Texas used to stock red-breasted sunfish, right? That's an East Coast fish. Doesn't occur native here, but they stocked them. And so they ended up in the Sabine and then ended up in some of these drainages. So, your advantage to fish Bundix for certain species and then jump across and fish Anacoco for different species and, get a jump on that mixed bag challenge, right? So enough bore you with biology, but this is what we're doing. And I'm mainly fishing these, Whiskey Chitta, Calcasieu, et cetera. I haven't really fished Brockwis or Bundix or Hickory Branch. These highlighted ones are what are called scenic streams in the state. And of course, they have certain designations which prevent them from being dammed, prevent them from being, logged certain distances from the stream. So they're nice natural streams. They have good flowing, water. They come out of sort of this Fort Johnson area and flow into Kisatchie and then down into this private land. But because of, again, the designations, there are certain things that private landowners can't do on them. You're not supposed to ride your four-wheelers through them and all that kind of stuff. So they're nice scenic areas to wade and fish. They're sandy and clear water. Calcasieu River, you can see is scenic for a while and then not scenic for a while. And that is because there are a couple of dams on the Calcasieu River. There's a couple low head dams. And so that section there does not qualify for the scenic stream, but there's still within some of these areas, some nice wadeable sandy areas that you can access and wade, et cetera, et cetera. The green dots are paddlecraft access and various boat launches. These are the ones that are on the Wildlife Fisheries website. There are some more, and there are opportunities to do some float trips along some of these, and particularly in the lower sections. And I'll talk about that next, Bill. Also, again, in the upper reaches, so just to orient you, Highway 26 is about as far south, in my opinion, as the wadable water. So if I'm wading, I'm going north of Highway 26 and some of these crossings up to Highway 10. Once you get above Highway 10, you can fish some of that, and I do fish some of that, but it becomes, what I call combat fly fishing, bow and arrow casts, trying to get your thing through all the limbs and trees. And particularly since Hurricane Laura knocked down a lot of trees, went through there, and really it can be pretty rough fishing in those upper reaches. But from Highway 10 south to Highway 26, and if you catch the water levels right, there's plenty of wadable areas that you can wade through. Then from Highway 26 down to Highway 190, that tends to be, in my opinion, more floatable, more float trips. And in fact, there are some commercial services that run canoe trips, particularly on the Whiskey Chitta down south of Highway 26. Of course, what you have to deal with there is the pro to that is they keep the river clean. Those companies will come through and cut out some of those logs and things because they don't want their customers to come at the end of the day and say it was the worst experience they ever had trying to get down that river. The negative to that is they're partiers. They're drinking and it's music and it's swimming and, they're muddying up the water. So you kind of have to go on some of the off days and things. Weekends are just crazy, right? But there are some opportunities to float, and we'll kind of talk about that. And then, of course, in the upper reaches, there's a lot of public land. So between the fort and National Forest, you can see it along Highway 10 as you get into Whiskey Chitta and Drake's Creek particularly. Those two are a lot of public land. And so the thing there is in Louisiana, you park on the side of the highway right away at the bridge and you access the creek in the right of way. No problem. You stay in the creek. It's public. You get out of the creek in, private land, right? So as long as you're in the creek, you're fine. And one of the good things about here is we've had no problems with, parking on the side of the road. We're careful. We get out of the way. We get well off the shoulder. There's a couple places I love to fish, but they really don't have good parking. So, I don't fish them as much as I'd like to, but a lot of the areas there's good parking. You get out of the way. You're careful. Sheriffs give us no trouble. Public seems to give us no trouble, and we can pretty much access just about all these places. And I contrast that growing up in Baton Rouge, Comite River, Amite River, Tangipahoa, same thing, nice sandy flowing streams, but you can't park along the side of the road anymore. They'll tell you if the meth heads don't rob you blind, or you'll get robbed blind and get towed. And so you have to be dropped off. There's good fishing. You have to be dropped off and picked up kind of thing. You can't really park. So over here, it's just kind of the difference is, they seem to encourage it. They seem to have no problem with you accessing these places, and we've had no trouble at all. Next slide. And in fact, so this comes from Allen Parish, and you can see, the fishermen, the canoers, the boat launches are all marked. And in fact, I'll point out this boat launch right here, that's not on Wildlife and Fisheries, right? So look at multiple sources and find things that you want to access. So, kind of do a little digging. But, Allen Parish, pretty much the tourist says, hey, here we are. Come fishing, come canoeing, come boating. And again, we found everybody up there to be very, very acceptable to fishing these creeks. Next. So what are we talking about? And so I'll sort of talk about from the up down. And so this is 6 Mile Creek just south out of Fort Johnson on Kisatchie National Forest. And this is one of the National Forest road crossing bridges right here. I can probably jump about halfway across that, from the bank. So, with a 9-foot fly rod and all, again, it's pretty tight fishing, but again, because it's public land, you can kind of work your way through there and hit these little pools, or you can kind of wade it. This is kind of a really favorite spot of mine with a little 2-weight. I got like a little 6.5-foot 3-weight bamboo. It's just a beautiful rod, but again, catching little bitty fish in there, but it's just a hoot on little small grasshoppers or little small poppers or whatever. But, it gets small. So, it's what I call combat fly fishing. So this is Whiskey Chitta, just north of Highway 10. A buddy of mine, 9-foot fly rod. You can see he's got probably another 9 or 10 feet to the other bank. And you can just see the amount of timber and structure that's in these. You're not making long casts. You're not drifting long periods. And again, it can be tight and it's worse since Hurricane Laura up there. Next. So now we're on Whiskey Chitta and we're between Highway 26 and Highway 10. We're about halfway down at one of the road crossings in between those two major highways, and same guy, so same scale. But you can see the difference. And so this becomes, to be frank, much more pleasurable to fish. It's still very wadeable. We can get through there without having to worry about hitting deep holes that we can't cross and things like that. In most instances, if we're hitting the water levels right, we can wade for mile and a half upstream or downstream easy, without having to worry about getting out on private property or any of that kind of stuff. And yet, again, you can see, you can make casts, you've got room for back casts, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have as many quite overhanging limbs, and you can make longer drifts, and it's just a little bit more pleasurable to fish. And then this is Whiskey Chitta south of Highway 26. This is actually from a Wildlife Fisheries video. They're running that river in a boat. Now, I don't know if it's a jet boat or what, but they're running it in a boat. So by the time you get south of Highway 26, you can see while there's sandbars and there's deep holes, you're probably not going to be able to wade that for a very long distance, right? So you're just going to be able to hit a section, and you're probably going to get to a point where it's too deep to wade across to get from this sandbar to the next sandbar, and you have to turn around and go back. It just depends on the water levels and kind of where you are. But you can kind of see as it progresses, and it's natural in a river system. The more and more drainage, the bigger the river gets and the harder it becomes to wade. And that's why I say, pretty much from my perspective, Highway 26 and north is where I'm wading. If I'm fishing south of Highway 26, I'm trying maybe to float or something like that. Regardless of all that, you're pretty much dealing with the same sort of structure. And again, I didn't grow up as a trout fisherman and moving water, very much. So, again, picking up the fly rod and mending and reading the river and all that. But, you pretty much, we've got sections where it's shallow all the way across. It's pretty even. This is probably where I catch the least amount of my fish, right? And obviously you can see how clear the water can be in a lot of instances. So, fish are not kind of hanging around in this 2 foot to maybe 6 inch area. Maybe you might pick up a fish around some structure, but it's pretty rare for me. And then you've got these bends where, it's deeper on one side, shallower on the other. And of course, there's shady areas, there's structure. I'm picking up fish there. And then there's sort of these long, straight runs. So we're coming out of this curve, and then this just becomes a long, straight, narrow run. And basically, it's pretty continuous depth throughout the whole thing. And so, this is the kind of section that I would be slowly wading through, and I would be maybe hitting both banks, right? And just trying to pick along both banks and see, or if there's structure in the middle, I might try to hit that as I get up to it, right? And the key here, at least in my experience, is if you're in this deep bend and you can wade out across to the other bank, and let's say it gets up, to the belly button or something like that, but you can kind of wade that. If all of this water is able to pass through that channel and it only gets to this deep, then this is probably going to be a foot or so less, and you're probably going to be able to wade through that whole section. Now, you might hit a hole every once in a while, but the idea is like all of this water passing through here has to pass through that narrower curve, and it gets deeper. But if you can wade across that, then you can usually wade through that shallow spot. So
the wider it is, probably more shallow.
Right. The wider it is, it's going to shallow up and pass that same amount of water. So just keep that in mind as you're going through that. Now, first time, I'm not going to wade through there fast, right? I'm going to take my time and I'm going to feel my way through there. But a lot of times, you're sitting in here and you're thinking, oh, that's going to be a deep spot, and you wade through it, and it's, it's just constant. But this can also be some really really good fishing along those areas. If you don't disturb it too much as you're wading through there, you can pick up. These are the kind of places where I'll pick up multiple fish in one location. A lot of these other kind of things, you might pick up one fish or two fish, you know, at a root ball or something. But again, in my experience, I find, you know, that's the thing, you're sticking and moving. And so you catch a fish here or a fish there, you know, there's no reason to just sit there and keep drifting, because you've probably picked up the couple fish that were there. You've disturbed the area. It's just time to move on. But these are some areas where sometimes you can hit a stretch of bank and you can stand in one location and you can pick up 5 or 6 or 7 fish kind of in one area, because they're just hanging along that bank line in that kind of constant flow, and they're darting out and getting whatever they can get. My experience anyway. And so again, not growing up trout fishing, not growing up in sort of a lot of moving water, even though again, I kind of did fish those sandy streams as a kid. I didn't pay attention to a lot of that. So, you know, for me, educational experience of starting to read moving water and where fish hang and where they last. And so, you know, structure and eddies and slow pools, I find, you know, you're more likely to find the largemouths and the brim in those really slow areas. The spots will tend to hang, you know, right in the more current areas than the largemouth and the brim, although they will kind of get in those back eddies, but they'll hang in a little more current. I'll tend to catch a few spots in the middle, particularly if they're structure, you know, that they can kind of get behind and dart out. They like a little bit more current, in my opinion, and most people say that. Not as much current like a smallmouth, but more than a largemouth. They're in those areas. You know, they'll be in those areas with rocks and things like that. But like I said, we're hitting a lot of structure. We're hitting right next to the bank. And if you're not catching, then you know, try some other things. But a lot of our fish are kind of right next to the bank, right in shade, right behind structure, current breaks, those kind of things. I catch less fish out in the middle than anywhere, but occasionally that's the pattern, right? So just like with any fishing, you kind of got to try that. But learning to read water, learning where those seams are, where fish are going to hang and where they're going to sort of dart out and attack something that comes by is kind of the mentality you need to have. That, you know, again, I didn't really kind of grow up with, oh, you throw by the cypress tree and you let it sit there, right? You know, but this is different. You're throwing up and trying to get it to drift by, or you're pulling it by, or whatever you're doing. And again, you can see from, you know, shallow to deep, water's moving around. So we might start out casting up by those tree limbs and letting it go under those limbs on the far side and working that bank and picking up maybe 1, 2 fish in that pool, and then moving on. Bill? I don't know what I was going to say here. Next slide.
Boat launch.
Yeah, it's boat launches. I already showed that. I guess I changed that up. Oh, okay. So maybe that was just to get us back to, so again, what those creeks look like. And so again, some of the scouting you can do before you go out there, right? So Google Earth, you can look at it. So again, this is Highway 10 running across the Whiskey Chitta. This is what it looks like from the bridge when you pass. So again, you can kind of barely see where that stream channel is on the map. And then, you know, it's very narrow. The tree canopy's over it. So you can sort of get an idea of what these places look like. Obviously, based on water levels and all of that, you know, clarity of the water, you really just got to go. You got to kind of learn what water levels allow you to wade, what distances, and I'll give you some tips, at least what works for me. But again, you go down, this is Highway 26. This is the Whiskey Chitta. Again, you know, much more open, much better to cast, et cetera. But because there are deeper holes, you got to wait for the water to get lower, right? To be able to wade any sort of distance. But again, you can kind of see on Google Earth, a lot of sandbars, a lot of, you know, curves in the river, deep holes and a sandbar on one side. Then you cross maybe a straight stretch, and then you get on the other sandbar and you fish the other curve, et cetera, et cetera. But again, wider, more convenient fishing, still lots of structure to fish, but you know, you just got to wait for the water to get right. Another resource to keep in mind is all the parish maps, show you all the parish roads. So again, you know, you want to know if it's an official parish road. This is on DOTD's website. Every parish has a map, or some parishes are divided into multiple maps. But this is something you can download from DOTD. So it tells you, not only Highway 190 and 10, but all of these other roads, what roads are public access that you can potentially access crossings. Again, I think I counted on the Whiskey Chitta from Highway 26 up to right before you get into Fort Johnson, 14 public crossings on Whiskey Chitta. And we're talking about Whiskey Chitta, 6 Mile, 10 Mile, and Calcasieu. So you've got all kinds of access and all kinds of drainage points that you can access these various streams. The other thing to really start looking at is water levels and paying attention to water levels. So this is USGS's National Water Dashboard. You may have seen this, but basically all these gauges are available. So again, we're looking at one where Whiskey Chitta and Calcasieu River come together, one on Whiskey Chitta, several up the Calcasieu, and then now there's 2 new gauges, one on Whiskey Chitta up just south of Kisatchie, and there's one on 10 Mile. There's still not another one on 6 Mile Creek, but so you have some gauges now to start telling you sort of when water levels are rising, falling, what levels to give you an idea of when you're out there. These were great conditions. I need to remember that water was at, let's say, 3 feet at this gauge. And so that's a level that I can wade and access. Yeah, Mike.
Are there transmitters on those?
There are. So you click on this website and it will tell you in real time what the reading is right now. You can also graph. Some of them have precipitation. Some of them have, all kinds of things. But, you can graph gauge height. You can get the last 7 days. You can get a year. You can get all kind of information off of these gauges. So
I'll put a link to the website.
What is that site, USGS?
yes, sir. It's called the USGS National Water Dashboard. If you Google that, it will come up.
I'll put a link on our website. Cool.
Yeah. So again, I will just say for me, this Whiskey Chitta gauge, and you can see it was at 7.36 feet the day I made this slide. That gauge at that crossing, if I want to fish it, I want it below 3 feet. So I'm not fishing that on that day or anytime soon. But you can see the water's falling. You can see the kind of the rate it's falling. You start to get an idea of how long it's going to take if we don't get any rain or anything to get maybe down to 3 feet. But yeah, so in here, I like 3 feet or less. But if I want to fish the north part, I can fish maybe up to 3.5. If this is at 3.5, I can start thinking about fishing there. Again, if it's falling, if we haven't had a lot of rain, right? Because again, these are shallower, they're draining faster. If I'm halfway between Highway 10 and there, I want it maybe 3 to 3.5 feet. That's just my person. Yes.
You prefer to wade as opposed to float?
I do, and particularly when I'm fly fishing, and maybe because I'm not a great fly fisherman, but you got all this line in your kayak, you're moving, there's a lot of structure, and you're hanging up, at least I am, because I'm wanting that fly next to that structure, right? I personally find fish, you got to be close. Sometimes you got to have that thing 2 inches from the bank, 6 inches from the bank. You get a foot from the bank, you're not catching anything, right? And I'm hanging up, I'm trying to manage this line. Whereas if I'm waiting, I can take my time. I might not cover as much water. Second, I'm going to show you the timing of the year. It really starts to get good in the hot part of the year. Waiting's wonderful because if I get hot, I can just dunk myself in this cool spring-fed creek and I can cool off and take a little snack, sit in the shade. So I wade more than I float. A lot of people float. Another thing to look at is your radar. And radar has what they call the BSTP. I'm not sure what the B stands for, but storm total precipitation. So from the last storm, when I shot this on the screen, this had been the rain from the last, I think, 24 hours or whatever the storm lasted. So if the storm's 6 hours, that's the last 6 hours of rain. If it's 24 hours, that's the last 24 hours of rain. What I use that for is, again, because there's separate drainages within here, I can see if, like, well, if it rained on this side, maybe I want to focus on Bundix or Drake's Creek or something like that. If it's rained on the west side, maybe I want to focus on the Calcasieu River, or et cetera. Because in late summer, what you will get is, if you get these pop-up showers, all of a sudden one of these little creeks will jump up. So the gauge at Highway 26 will show that it's fallen, but you get there and that creek is suddenly rising. It's kind of murky and muddy, and I need to go somewhere else because, but if you pay attention to the rain, it gives you a little bit better idea, particularly in the summertime with these pop-up showers of, hey, let's focus on the west side rather than the east side because they got some rain in the last day or two over that way. So something to just kind of keep an eye on if you're going to be doing this, because it is, very much dependent upon the condition of that creek, water rising, muddy, etc. What time are we really talking about? So this is what's called the median daily discharge. And so to explain that, the median number is 50% of your readings are above that and 50% of your readings are below that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 10 numbers. The median is 5.5, right? 50% of your readings are below, 50% of your readings are above. What that's do is just kind of give you an idea of the probability on any day when you're going to be above or below that. So 50-50 chance. This is really the idea. And again, this is the discharge I like that corresponds with that 3 feet of elevation. And so really we're talking, this stuff starts to get good in June, July, August, and again, remember the long sleeve shirt and some of these pictures, it starts to go all the way into November and even into December that these creeks are low. There's a good chance that there's going to be plenty of days. So we're talking, this is some of the best fall fishing. These fish are feeding, water temperatures are getting cool. They've been through this kind of hot summer, low flows. And if you can get out there in October, November, and even you can have some days where it just seems like every log's got a spotted bass beside it and they want to eat. So I'll start looking in May. I'm hoping I can get out there. I might not be able to get out there till June or July, but sometimes I can get out there into December. I've even made a couple of trips in January, put the waders on in November, December, and January, and made some good trips. It's rare, but you can do it. But your main point is in the summer. So this has been this year. The blue line is this year. So again, you get a rain event, you spike. So again, I said, May, June, you start to get good, but notice this is 5 feet right here. So never really got good except a couple little stretches right here in July and then into August. But then we got a pretty good window again in that October, November time period. Again, I made some good trips. A couple of them I had to put the waders on. We had some cold nights and, but had some good trips. So again, that previous median was a statistic based on 80 years of readings, but, each year is a little different. The brown line was the drought year of 2023. It was beautiful. I could wade anywhere I wanted for miles. And it was fishable at 3 feet from late May all the way into January. And I mean, in fact, the Calcasieu River got too warm. In fact, I stopped fishing some locations on the Calcasieu River because I would wade in it and it was hot. It was like taking a bath. And I figured it was getting to the point where I was stressing those fish. So I stopped fishing the Calcasieu. Some of the other ones coming out of Fort Polk that were spring fed, they stayed really good, really good. And so if you're like me and you like to collect your own fly tying materials, there's some opportunities for cast and blast, so to speak. And we've done that. So remember I showed you those public lands. So whether you're a deer hunter or, you know, whatever it is, there's some opportunities to go out there, and we've done it. We've showed up first thing in the morning, did our hunting, put our waders on, and caught some bass. Again, I have more than one shirt. I promise. I have more than one shirt. So, and the advantage of this, again, this area, what I like about it is, so let's say I look at this gauge at Whiskey Chitta and it looks good. And I'm like, okay, Whiskey Chitta at Highway 26, it's at 3 or less and I want to go. That's my number. The weather looks good. It hadn't rained in a while. The gauge is on a fall or a slow fall. I get there and it's muddy. 10 minutes. I can be on 10 Mile Creek, a totally different drainage. That might not be muddy. The mud might be coming from a rain shower that was up here, right? So in 10 minutes, I can check a totally different drainage. And if this drainage is good, I can fish here. I can go to Palestine Road. I can just start going north and I can hit these areas and fish what I want. If 10 miles muddy, well, maybe that's where the mud's coming from. And so in 10 minutes, I can be up and across the Palestine Road and I can hit 6 Mile Creek right there. And if 6 Mile Creek is clear, I can start working 6 Mile. If 6 miles muddy, I can hit Whiskey Chitta right here again. And I've had it happen where Whiskey Chitta's down here is muddy, 10 miles muddy, 6 miles muddy. Whiskey Chitta right here is clear as a bell, flowing wonderfully because the rain must have been over here or whatever that was. And I can make that circuit in 30 minutes. So I can hit 3 different drainages and check if I've got clear water on pretty much all of those creeks. And if none of those are good, well, then I can hop over to Bundix or I can run up to Drake's. Maybe that's more like a half an hour or so, but I can hit different drainages in very short periods of time. And I can usually salvage a fishing day. If I've done my research and, you know, I hate to call it research, but if I've looked at everything, my water levels are good, the rain shower stuff is good, and I can usually find good, clear water within, you know, first, second, third spot I hit. Tackle for me, in bold 8.5 foot 4-weight with a 6 foot line. Again, it's combat fishing. I like a good roll cast. So I like to overweight my lines, my rods in this case. 2 things. The 6-weight can throw a little bit bigger flies, right? The 6-weight line can carry a little bit bigger flies, but I'm fishing small fish. So I get a nice fight on that 4-weight. And again, it becomes a very good roll casting rod. A lot of guys I know in Baton Rouge Club, they like fiberglass rods because they get a lot of good roll casting. So that's mine. Well, I should say that was mine. My wife stole it. So now I have a 9 foot 4-weight with 6-weight line, but I love the 8.5 foot. It's a little bit shorter. Maybe it was psychological. I felt like I didn't get hung up as much. As far as leaders, I will say it's not trout fishing. So, I'm fishing bigger flies for bass and I'll pass them around when we talk about flies. But, I start out with, about 13 thousandths tippet. In my case, that's about 12-pound stuff. Again, I don't find their leader shy, even in the clear water. But again, if I'm going smaller poppers, I might go down to like, 12 thousandths. And if I'm fishing big deer hair bugs where I just need a little bit more energy, I might even go all the way up to 15 thousandths. Tippet, 15 pounds. And you say, God, to catch these little fish, it's not about catching those little fish. It's about, throwing this big hula popper, right? So, and they're not leader shy, at least in my experience. Every once in a while, I felt like I've had to maybe go to some fluorocarbon or something like that, but it's rare. The other thing I will say is good footwear. For me, the older I've gotten, I tried the sandals. I tried the old tennis shoes. They're lighter. At the end of the day, your legs don't feel quite as worn out from walking in that sandy water. But I find my ankles. So again, I'm going to the wading boots. I just find it gives me more support. You kind of got to figure out what you do. I come out and people see me and, you know, I've got this bag on and I've got a fly rod and I've got wading boots with neoprene socks. And they're like, this ain't Colorado. What the hell are you doing? You know, but I don't care because my ankles don't hurt at the end of the day. And then the other thing you're going to want, at least in my opinion, is a waterproof bag, because no matter how much you try, you're going to slip somewhere and everything's going to go underwater. And everything is going to get soaking wet. And so again, for the first few years for me, you know, I spent more time drying out fly boxes than I did taking fishing trips. And so you can see when I pass this around, like rubber gasket, it's not an official fly box, but to me, this does better on these creeks. I can seal it up. If I go under or I drop it, my flies are staying dry and I'm not having to go home and spread out 100 flies or 50 flies on the kitchen table and make my wife mad when I do that. So flies. And so I'll pass this around. These are sort of some of the bigger flies. If I decide to downsize, you can kind of see the sizes of those flies, but just kind of pass those around. These are some of my favorites. A guy named Pete Cooper, if you don't know Pete, he was really one of the kind of first guys to write about fly fishing in Louisiana, and he read fishing and got it kind of publicized, really worked hard to get fly fisheries to recognize records on the fly rod. And, you know, quite a character, unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but he's written several books, one on saltwater fishing in Louisiana. If you can find it, buy it. A lot of good stuff. If you can find this one, Fine Art of Creek Fishing, buy it. And again, he particularly talks a lot about Kisatchie Bayou. He talks about these bayous in the west part of the state. Pete, kind of a bit of an old curmudgeon, you know, at the same time. And he's like, this is all you need. You need poppers in frog colors or yellow in size 6, and you need marabou muddlers grease. That's all you need, right?
You use a 4, it had to be a 6.
That's right. It had to be a 6. It had to be. But, you know, in some ways, Pete was right, because I probably catch a ton of fish on very similar flies to that. Maybe not the exact, but very similar flies to that. But again, being a biologist, you know, 2016 study, spotted bass in the Lake Pontchartrain streams, 69% of the diet of wadable stream fish is fish, crawfish, and aquatic insects, none of which really are on the surface like poppers or marabou muddlers, right? So, you know, you do want to kind of branch out. And I will say, for aquatic insects, though, some of your trout stuff, mayfly nymphs, dragonfly nymphs, I mean, those are food sources. And then alderfly, dobsonfly, the helgramite, in that small box, there's a black fly right there called the Mighty Mite helgramite. It's a great little helgramite imitation from a guy named Mike Verduen out of Texas, and it catches fish. Next. So what do? Top waters and divers are probably 70 to 80% of my fishing. Again, there is a lot of structure. And so, you know, if you try to go subsurface, I mean, it's not like a rocky trout stream where, you know, if you stay off the bottom, you won't get hung up. I mean, there's just logs everywhere. There's sticks in the middle. There's, you know, you're fishing here, and next thing you know, your line's wrapped around some stick you don't even see, you know, 3 feet under the water. And next thing you know, you're pulling and getting hung up. So I start out on the surface and do a lot of my fishing. To be honest, again, frog colors, brown is a good color, those kinds of things. You can see this gurgler, I call it the frogler. So it's kind of a gurgler mix with some silly legs, furled silly legs, a la Ted Cavalli. Looks like a frog. I mean, that thing is murder. Those silly legs sink in the water, so it looks like a frog just hanging, sitting in the water. This stealth bomber, which is a Kent Edmonds fly out of Georgia, and he tied that for shoal bass. Again, bass in flat, fast current water. I tie it in kind of a froggy pattern with hackle feathers out the back. Again, to be honest, whatever your favorite topwater is, you know, just have frog colors, have yellow. Yellow works good. Orange works good for me. Browns work good for me. Yes, sir.
What's the current like? I know it probably varies through the year, but
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, there's never a spot where I feel like if I even have to swim a spot, which I don't recommend, then I'm going to get swept away from the current. I'm never at the point where I feel like the current's going to swipe my feet out. You know, again, I'd have to go back to that chart, but I think that 3 foot level was about 375 cubic feet a second, if that means anything to you.
We don't have a big elevation drop.
Right. Yeah. It's not a huge drop. So, you know,
Another question, did you ever encounter any critters, gators and stuff?
Well, yeah.
well, yeah,
I'm not from here.
yeah. Well,
Turtles.
I will say, yeah, I will say, I've actually never seen an alligator on one of these streams. And I don't know if it's just a combination of the cooler water and, you know, sort of the moving water. And I'm sure there is some.
On Fort Moultrie Creek.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, in turtle traps. I mean.
Yeah. So they're there.
It's like, I'm just
Right.
coming around,
So,
those tight
yeah.
streams and we're seeing something.
Snakes on the bank, like if you're close to the bank and there's a root ball, you need to keep your eyes open. But again, I will tell you, I've probably seen less snakes on some of those creeks than like a swampy, slow water area, right? But there's some. Again, more water snakes than moccasins, but you know, you got to watch where you're going.
I can tell you from experience, do not wear swimming trunks.
So the other one, this is the wiggle.
Yeah, it took me a while to get back to work.
This is a wiggle bug. This is the wiggle minnow. They're both available commercially, but again, I put lead eyes on this because I find it helps dive. This is the Rapala of fly fishing. So that lip, that foam lip, basically catches water, and that thing shakes and swims like nothing else. And again, I've seen fish move, you know, several feet, come out of cover and hit that thing. It's a little bit of a chore to fish because when you pick it up and you're trying to pick it up, it's wanting to dive. But, you know, you get it out of the water and you make a cast, and you can either dead drift it along the surface like it's a dead something, or then you can pull it under and get that Rapala action, and you move it by root balls and things like that. They will come out and nail that thing. And I like that better than the wiggle minnow. The wiggle minnow is probably easier to tie, but I like it better because I can weight it and I can get that more of an orientation where it dives easier. It's just me, but and the other thing, go to the next. Don't forget your hoppers and terrestrials, just like you would be trout fishing, little size 10s and 12s and whatever, and especially if you're downsizing on lightweight rods. Again, I mean, those fish will come up and smack those hoppers like crazy. So sometimes we're not doing good on the bigger stuff. We'll downsize. You got to fight the brim a little bit more, which is not a problem. But, you know, as far as the bass goes, sometimes that's what it takes to trigger the bass too. Slow sinking, suspending flies. What did I do? Next. Oh, I'm animated. Oh, I'm getting fancy. So there's peach marabou muddler. Again, it works. So deer hair and marabou out the back. And again, he says grease. So you put a little floating on it and it kind of keeps it in that surface film. So again, he's still kind of surface fishing, but muddlers are good. One of the flies I use a lot now, it's called the Hud's Bushwhacker. It's the fourth one down. There's one in that box going around. You notice you tie that on one of those oversized worm hooks. And so everything is tied on that little short shank right there. But man, that is the most weedless, limbless fly that I have run across, because that hook keels up and it just rides over limbs. And I mean, that thing is beautiful, and yet still hooks fish very, very well, right? Some of the problems with weedless flies, they don't hook fish. That thing hooks fish wonderfully and is weedless as can be and limbless as can be. So that's become one of my minnow things. Now, the problem is to get a hook good enough to tie one of those flies on, you're talking about a 1/0, sometimes a 2/0 hook. And so you're getting a 4 to 6 inch minnow, right? And if you need smaller minnows, it gets hard to downsize because you've got to have enough hook nose, I call it, to tie that fly. But that's an excellent weedless minnow fly for more than just streams. Gartside soft tackle streamer, that's probably one of my favorite small minnow patterns because you can get those maybe 2 to 3 inches. You know, it's just marabou palmered on a hook. And those things work really, really well. And then the seducer, Ketch here's famous for an article I think he wrote, said it's the spinner bait of the fly fisherman, right? You put a lot of flash on it, makes a lot of commotion. And again, if you look at some of these spotted bass YouTube videos of guys catching spotted bass, most of the time they're floating these things and they're throwing spinner baits, right? And they're just hitting logs and pulling it out, hitting logs and pulling it out. And, you know, they're catching the heck out of these spotted bass. And so anything like that you can chunk in there, get it to drop a little bit, make a lot of flash, move it, and they'll run out and hit it. This bulkhead deceiver's become, again, another good minnow. It's all deer bucktail on a hook, minnow pattern. A lot of movement, a lot of tail wiggle, but it's very much a suspending bait. So again, it sinks really slow, and when you pull it, there's just a lot of jiggle and flash in it. It's hard to get deep. But this has really become my favorite fly lately, and this is called the Mini Sid. It started out as an articulated 2-hook fly for brown trout in the Norway archipelago by a guy named Andreas Andersen, right? But then he downsized it to a 1-hook. And I was looking for one of these deer wedge head flies that was going to kind of, again, dive and be really erratic. And so I was looking for something simple because I didn't want a 2-hook. I didn't want to tie, 6 materials on 1 hook and 8 materials on another hook and then lose that on the 3rd cast. I basically, it's tied on this 26-degree bend. It's got a rabbit zonker strip. It's got synthetic hackle, mirror flash or whatever, wrap palmered around the hook. And then you tie the deer hair head, you shave it in a wedge shape, and then he puts a little epoxy or UV epoxy on the surface. And what this thing does, you think it's going to be like that wiggle bug, like the Rapala, where it dives and wiggles. It dives and it kind of vibrates a little bit. The tail wiggles like crazy if you just give it a good long strip. But the key that I found in these streams is you give it a little jerk. And it dives, and then you don't know what it's going to do. Sometimes it'll kick up. Sometimes it'll flip over to the side and suspend. And other times and it just drives fish nuts. I caught a sockeye that came out from a root ball 5 feet to nail that thing. I just saw the silver flash and I thought it was a spot and it was wide. So I was like, oh my God, set the hook and, fought for a minute. And then I get the sockeye kind of wet paper bag. And I'm like, pulled up a big old sockeye in one of these creeks, but that thing moved out from that root ball 5 feet to hit that thing. I've had spots just run out 2 and 3 at a time. Sometimes that thing is money.
I have a question. Does the hook come like that?
Yes. The hook comes with a 26-degree bend. It's an Arex hook called the TP650, I think. And it's designed for these kind of wedge head down bend flies. And yet I find you don't lose hook set. They've got it designed really well to where, you shave that deer hair down, you still got plenty of hook gap and you catch fish. And this thing is it's money. It's become my favorite way to fish. And so that's why when I say 70 to 80% top water, that's going down. That's going down to that. And another thing I will do with this is I don't weight it. There's no weight on it. So I've gone to intermediate sinking lines, which you're thinking, wow, in creeks this deep. But it's, again, get it down a foot and a half and work that thing right down by those logs or along those banks, and they are just tearing this thing up. And if you can't get it down, and here's the other thing, it fishes better the wetter it gets. So like a deer hair fly, you want floating on it, you want to keep it up, it gets too soggy, you want to take it off, put a new one on. No, not this. You want it to get wetter and wetter and wetter. It dives better, it stays down more, it seems to get more erratic. And it just, about the only problem I can say with this is you got to watch the rabbit strip tail wrapping around your hook every once in a while. but not bad, because if you notice, this is not very far off the back of that hook bend. It's not a long tail. Oh, that thing is just, I got some video on my phone. No, I don't have that video on my phone anymore, sorry.
Is that your favorite color right there? Yellow?
No. Yeah, and full disclosure, I don't time that well. If you see the one going around in that box, it's not tied quite that well. I would say my favorite colors have been white, have been chartreuse, and have been olive and brown. Those have been probably my three favorite colors. Woolly boogers and bead chain clousers, they work too, though. So if you're just getting into this, don't hesitate. Bill?
I just did it. It went back behind.
And then I always have some bottom bouncing. Again, it's my least favorite way to fish. You're going to get hung up, but sometimes running a crawfish through a heavy crawfish through a run, or throwing it up against a log real quick and just dragging it out, almost, just roll cast it in there and drag it out, roll cast and drag it out. Sometimes that's what it takes. Again, just you pick your poison. I've been downsizing with some pheasant crawfish, heavily weighted. They sink fast. They do well. This maize full motion body crawfish is one of my favorites. It works well. That Helgramite, again, throwing it in, weighting it differently, sometimes heavy, sometimes not. And then this is Ted Caballi's creature squirm creature bait, where again, furling silly legs and making sort of these worms or creature baits. Those work really well to kind of get down and pull fish out of deep holes. Techniques, fish upstream when possible. Again, it washes your dirt downstream. You can kind of do that. It's not always possible. And then sometimes working downstream and quartering works pretty well. But we try to fish upstream if we can. It just seems to work a little better. Walk quiet, wear dark clothes. It's not the place for your red or your, bright yellow shirts and things like that. That water's clear. It's small creeks, so do that. Roll casting or single hand spay casts are very useful. Again, I'm not great at it, but trying to learn some of that to position your line and then roll cast. And again, those are things, while not necessary, they just help. When you got all that limb cover, trying to get that fly in there and position, sometimes, again, practicing your offhand back cast where you're casting down the stream and then you let go backwards to get your fly where you want it to be. Those are all very useful things to practice that I was not good at when I started and probably less than mediocre still, but I'm getting better. And then practice strip setting. So again, you're not trout fishing. So if you've had experience in trout moving water, and a lot of times you're just lifting the rod and let the fish set the hook. These are bass. They've got tougher mouths, and so having a strip set is something that you need to do in these instances. For topwater, I'll rank my techniques, what I think works best for me, and that is dead drift. I catch most fish on dead drifts. I don't know, there's something about it. Slap it down, let it drift past the root ball or log, and it's going to come out there and nail it. There are days when we've had where you've got to slap it down and give it one good pop or maybe two good pops and then let it dead drift. We've fished areas, let it dead drift, nothing. You slap it in there, you give it a good pop, and all of a sudden, boom, pop, just kind of working it across. That works the least for me. Is that me? So that works the least for me, but, sometimes it works. Streamers, unweighted flies. So a lot of the flies you see me send around here, they're streamers or whatever, they're not weighted. I don't weight my flies. And you say, oh, well, you're fishing these shallow things. But I do sometimes the bottom bouncing flies are weighted. But the minnows and all of that, they're not weighted, or they're weighted very lightly. And that's all right. And part of that is because you are fishing sort of shallow to deep to shallow, and I'd rather use split shot. As much of a pain as that is, I'd rather put split shot on or take it off than have to worry about, well, is this a weighted fly? Is it a not weighted fly? I tie a weighted fly on, I fish it for 50 yards, and then, oh, this is too heavy. So it's just easier to put split shot on. So again, that mini Sid, I'll put a little piece of 6-8 inch tippet on when I'm putting that fly with a knot, and I'll put that lead shot in front of that, and it just gets that nose of that fly down a little faster. And again, I can fish 3 and 4 feet deep with that deer hair fly on an intermediate sink tip line pretty quickly, and I can cover some water. So consider that. Again, consider sinking lines. It doesn't seem like a place for sinking lines, but particularly intermediate sink tips I find work good. They get those streamers down 1 or 2 feet pretty quick, and you can pull them through there. Keep them at a constant level. You know, if you got a floating line and you start stripping, you know, that fly wants to ride up, and then you got to let it sink, and it wants to ride up. But with those intermediate sink tips, you put them down, you let it sink to the level you want, and you strip, and it just pulls it straight through the column. And remember, escaping minnows move downstream. So again, a little bit more of my biology for you, right? So if you want natural presentations, you know, that's part of that fish upstream, throw it upstream and pass it by like it's escaping downstream, triggers that reaction. Bottom bouncing, cast upstream and hop flies downstream. And then the whole slag crayfish hop, they use an indicator. I'm still working on that catch. You know, last time I gave this presentation, but you know, he uses an indicator, flips it upstream and puts a big mend in his line, and then kind of hops it down and lets that indicator just kind of bounce it along the bottom. It takes a little coordination, and I'm still working on it, but it's a deadly technique. I mean, catch can let you know that guy caught some fish. Tim Holslag caught some fish. You know, safety, use caution when wading. Consider bringing a boat instead of swimming across deep spots. I've actually got a little 10-foot Native Ultimate. They don't make it anymore. It's like 35 pounds empty. And, you know, it's a great thing to just tie to your waist, put your ice chest in it or whatever, and just drag it along. You can drag it over logs. It's not heavy or whatever. But if you ever get to a long, deep stretch, and I know a couple spots that have a long, deep stretch, I can hop in it, paddle upstream or paddle, you know, across that deep spot and keep fishing. Use the buddy system, or at least make sure someone knows the plan. My wife hates it when I'm out there by myself, but you know, just make sure I tell her, hey, I'm at this bridge crossing, I'm going upstream. And if I come back to that bridge crossing and decide to go downstream, I send her a text, hey, still at the same bridge crossing, but I'm going downstream. Just, you know, you're kind of out there in some spots, and if you're not with a buddy, you're on your own. Sandbars, slippery when wet. It's the most viscous surface known to man, I think. When those streams go down, I think they deposit a little bit of clay on the edges of those sandbars, and I mean, you will kill yourself if you're not careful on those things. Avoiding the plastic party hatch. So if you do get an area, bridge crossing where there's, you know, a lot of people, so Calcasieu at Highway 26, Whiskey Chit at Highway 26, big party sandbars, people with barbecue pits, radios blast and all that. Smaller streams have less chance of that, but at the launch area, this is what we found: is you get there early in the morning, they're not there. They're not showing up till 10 o'clock or, you know, whatever. Wade upstream, do your fishing, come back for lunch. Yes, there's going to be a bunch of people and music and loud or whatever. And then at the launch area, if it's like kayak stuff and they're going downstream and you're fishing upstream in the morning, but in the afternoon, they've all gone, right? They've put all their canoes in and gone downstream. And so now you can go downstream and there's nobody. And pretty much at those areas, you get one bend around and there's nobody. Yeah, you might still hear the music a little bit or whatever, but they're not hauling their ice chest and their barbecue pit and their tent and their kids' sand toys and all. They're not hauling that far down the river. So they're all right there on that one sandbar right at the access. You get past that, you got the river to yourself. Yes?
Yeah, running the rotten sand, have you?
I run into a little rotten sand, and that's a good point. You have to be careful with that. I find...
What is that?
So
Disappearing, quicksand.
Yeah.
It's sink, and you got, it's actually by you, the torch for it.
Right.
I've seen shoes disappear very
Yeah.
found. So I mean, you gotta.
Yeah. So typically, you know, I've never hit a spot where I've gotten, you know, below my knees. And of course, the first thing you do from a safety standpoint, you start to fall, you know, or whatever. Just go ahead and fall on your knees and spread your surface weight out and, you know, back up, right? But I find it's bad after a big high water event and the water goes down, that sand has been placed in new areas and it's not as compacted and and that's where you'll get those soft sand body things. But yeah, you do. It's a good point. I probably should add that for safety. You do have to watch out for some of that loose shifting sand, almost like what people would call quicksand. But again, the thing is fall down on your knees and disperse your weight and just get out of there. You know, get back up. Yeah. Kind of throw your rod behind you and get backed up. Don't keep trying to, oh, well, it'll get better, you know. I have to put this in there for safety too. There are fish consumption advisories. Again, we'll keep a few fish. I've got a buddy with some small kids and every once in a while we'll go and he's like, you know, I'd like to have a fish fry for the family. So we'll keep some 10, 12-inch fish if we catch them. But there are fish advisories. I mean, that's common everywhere now, unfortunately. And you can look those up on the web. So why bass fish these creeks? Hopefully I haven't bored the newcomers and turned them off to the club. I'm sorry, I'm your first introduction here, but no, I mean, really, because it's fun, right? We're having fun. It's cool in the summer. It's again, part of the reason I love it is, you know, Calcasieu Lake and catching speckled trout, but it's 98 degrees and you're out in the hot sun. And here I am in a nice shady creek and cool water. And if I get hot, I can cool off. You can be successful, you know, even not really reading water and all some of this stuff I talked to you. I went out there with a few poppers. I did what Pete Cooper said, brought some poppers, brought a few marabou muddler kind of things, and you catch fish. And if you downsize to little sponge spiders or hoppers, I mean, you're always going to catch brim and things like that. I mean, I can't think of maybe, you know, in the last 10 years I've been doing this, I can't think of maybe one trip I got skunked. Maybe one. I'm not even sure about that. It's good practice for both cold water and fresh water. Or salt water. Again, you're casting big bugs. You want to hit a spot, so it's like redfish are cruising, and you want to put the fly there. It's the same. You want to make short casts because you don't have a lot of room, and you want to hit that fly where you want to hit it. So it's good practice for salt water. You're casting big flies. It's good practice for cold water because you're mending line, you're reading water, you're figuring out how to kind of work it. So it's great for kind of both of those. It's good exercise. You are gonna expend some calories out there, wading around that water, walking through the sand, crawling over a few logs, running from the snakes.
Put that to safety.
Yeah, safety. Yeah, crawling over logs. Yeah, and beautiful scenery. Again, it's you know, part of the state that is unlike a lot of things, parts of the state, and it's beautiful. And next, it's fun. Trust me, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And with that, I think I'm done, and I'll take any questions. Yes, sir.
The spider bass are typically small, but what's the biggest bass you caught doing this?
So actually, on the first page is the biggest one I've caught, and I didn't have a scale with me, but I measured it with my fly rod, and then, you know, measure. And by the length weight charts, it would have been right at 2 pounds.
Is that a whiskey kid? That's another thing too. If you go looking for OUISKA Creek on the bridge, that ain't what it says. It says whiskey.
Yeah.
And then you get down on 112 and it says Whiskey Chitter River.
Yeah.
So somebody in the sign department in West Louisiana got all their mess.
Well, or maybe that's me, and so I'm telling you to go there, but I'm making it kind of, you know, yeah. You know, look, I will tell you, I mean, I like them all, but I guess I will just say, if you forced me to fish one creek, I'd fish 6 Mile.
On lookout.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I worked there for 18 years. I thought it was fishing.
No, further south.
Oh.
But, you know, I like I said, I like several sections of the whiskey.
6 Mile boat are crossed by Highway 26.
No.
Highway 10.
No.
10 Mile is. No. I thought 6 Mile was too.
They both hit the Whiskey Chitta before Whiskey Chitta gets to Highway 26. They both come in right before that.
I'm sorry.
They're crossed
26.
They're crossed at 10.
I meant 10.
If you fish 10, and this is what Pete Cooper, you know, he was big on Highway 10 because you could go on Highway 10, you cross Calcasieu, you cross 10 Mile, you cross 6 Mile, you cross Whiskey Chitter, you cross Drake's Creek, all in between Oakdale and Leesville. Right. You cross 5 scenic streams in that one stretch of, yeah. But again, up at 10, it's narrower, it's tougher.
Banks.
Yeah.
It's high banks where you've got to get in it, and
Yeah.
then that's when you deal with.
Right.
Other, like fish there.
No, I fish them.
I do.
Just,
I'm just saying you
Yeah.
got high banks there, a lot
Yeah.
of them don't have a lot of sand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scrambling down those 20-foot banks.
Yep.
Get back up, getting back up, right. That's a very first thing. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it very much.
well, thank y'all.
Big fan of it. Very important.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, we're gonna say.
so thank you, Darin. That was a great presentation. Hope we all learned something. I expect to see y'all in the creeks in the coming months, coming weeks at least, if it doesn't rain. If it doesn't rain. That's the big problem. Yeah. Is there anything else